one of the great things about macro is you can do it in your garden. So you don't have to go very far at all to find something interesting to photograph, which is one of the reasons I chose macro, because I have suffered from depression in the past. So not having to leave the house to do photography was a real big benefit of macro, you know. And and it's like when it comes to the angles, you know, when you look at a spider normally, you're looking top down at it, so you know what it looks like, you've seen it. But then when you get the camera and put it in its face and do what I like to call an insect portrait, it gives it a whole of another character to the subject. And yeah, I love it, you know.
So do you literally just go around the house finding just regular spiders, or do you have like specific particular spiders that you prefer?
I used to, because obviously when you start in photography, you want an easy subject to photograph, so you just grab something from around the house. Now I tend to go out. Jumping spiders, I love jumping spiders, as you know. I keep them as pets. And one spider I'm after at the moment is a crab spider, but I can't get a picture of them. They keep eluding me. Everybody I follow on Instagram is posting crab spider images, and I'm like, I can't get it. So yeah, I'm always out in the wild looking for images that I haven't taken. I don't like taking the same image over and over again. I find it gets a little bit boring. You know, I've been there and done that. So I'm constantly looking for new subjects, new angles, new ways of doing things. So yeah, it's interesting. It's one of the hardest things, actually finding the subject, you know.
Where do you normally find, you mentioned jumping spiders. Where do you find those?
Jumping spiders, typically you'll find those on man-made structures mostly. So your house wall, you'll find them on there, or on the fence that going down your garden. You'll see a little spider running around. It's got little zebra stripes on it, so it's like black and white. That one's that's a jumping spider. So they're particularly good subjects, because even people that suffer from arachnophobia like the jumping spider, because they're not your typical spider that makes webs and cobwebs all over your house. And they've got two massive big eyes. That is, the vision on them is just as good as what your vision is. And it gives them a kind of how can I say, a nicer character than your general spider. So yeah, jump spiders, anywhere hot. So if you've got a surface in your garden where the sun is shining on it and you get flies landing on it, you'll typically find a jumping spider on there somewhere.
Why are they called jumping spiders? Are they literally jumping, or what's the thing with those?
Yeah, so your typical spider that everybody knows, it goes out, makes a web, and your fly goes into the web, the spider runs out, you know, grabs the prey, whereas a jumping spider doesn't actually make a web, it actually hunts around for its prey, and when it spots its prey, which is typically, let's say, a fly, it will actually jump onto the prey to take it down like a lion would. It's quite fascinating to watch, it really is.
But then how do you photograph them? Is there literally
with difficulty? Have you ever photographed children?
Yes.
It's basically the same thing. You got to. Either they run around and get tired and then just stop for a moment to take a breathe, which is when you get the shot, or you give them something to do. So typically, if I've got a jumping spider that won't cooperate, I'll give it a fly to feed it, and then, you know, it's like giving a child an ice cream when you want to take a picture of a child. You know, they stop running around and they're eating the ice cream. It's basically the same thing. So you feed it, give it something to do. That they like to explore, jumping spiders do. So if you move it onto a different environment, it might start exploring the environment, and you can kind of predict where it's going to go. So if it's coming up the back of a flower, you can predict it's going to come up the top of the flower, and you can get into place quickly and get the shot as it comes over.
So do you catch them and then take them inside and photograph them, or do you literally photograph them in situ?
There's different levels. I mean, my pet jumping spider, which I have on my shelf behind me, they are literally there for testing equipment, because obviously I do reviews on YouTube. I teach macro, so they're very useful for teaching macro. Wild jumping spiders, I try to capture them in their environment if I'm able to, but sometimes you can't do that, so I might move it if it's a species I haven't photographed before. I might move it onto one of my platypod setups, so that I can get a decent picture of it. But most of the time I'm trying to get them in situ, unless it's my pet one, of course. And again, if I wasn't teaching macro or doing YouTube, I probably wouldn't have pet jumping spiders, but they're just great for teaching macro photography.
So it's literally a test spider.
It is like having a test spider, yeah. So if someone sends me a lens for review, the first thing I photograph is my spider because I'm very familiar with them. And if there's an issue with one of the lenses or a camera setup, I'll immediately spot it by photographing my pet jumping spiders.
And I noticed you just mentioned platypod, of course.
Yeah.
I know you're a platypod pro.
Yes.
Just like myself, so welcome to the world.
Yeah.
Platypods.
Welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club. Exactly. Incredible tools. I mean, how we'll get into how you photograph these spiders. What is the sort of the toolkit in order to photograph, bugs and spiders? Outdoors or in the studio? How do you?
Like I said before, I mean, I said it on one of my last videos I uploaded. If I wasn't doing YouTube, I probably wouldn't do studio macro. I'd be completely outdoor macro. But from a teaching point of view, the studio it's a great tool for teaching. Okay, so if we stick to my personal work, that is outdoor work. Okay. And to photograph the bugs outdoors, you really need a setup that is geared towards macro photography. Now, you can do it on any camera. You can use extension tubes to convert your normal lenses into a macro lens. But if you want to get the results like I do, you really got to start gearing towards actual macro gear. And one of the key things is your camera needs to be fast, because these things are moving around. You need to get the shot very, very quickly. So knowing your gear, knowing how to quickly alter your settings, and above all, knowing the species you're photographing as well. Like if we take, for instance, a jumper spider, I know roughly what it's going to do. I know it's going to have a look around on the plant and all that. If we take the crab spider, I'm not familiar with the crab spider, so I keep missing shots because they're very skittish. So each species, you've got to approach them from a different perspective. So you've got your one that's scared, got the other one that's adventurous. The jumper spiders will quite often jump onto your camera, which can be a bit daunting because there's so many little nooks and crannies that they can get into that, you might have a spider inside your diffuser, but then when you're photographing other spiders, they're completely different. So, yeah, the number one thing you really need to do is know your subject that you're photographing. That way you can predict what they are going to do when you start photographing them.
And I guess that's exactly where the crossover to wildlife photography is,
yes.
Where you just need to know the animal that you photograph. I mean, regardless as to whether it's a lion, for example, or a dog, or a spider.
It's basically the same for most genres. You need to know the subject that you're photographing to give you, I'd say, better odds of getting a shot is probably the best way to put it. If you don't know a species, you might get the odd shot that works, but with macro, you're talking 1 out of 100 shots will be okay. I won't say they're the best shot. It'll be okay or satisfactory. So anything you can do to increase the odds is in your favour, basically. So you want a fast camera. When I say fast camera, I'm on about the frames per second. You want a flash. If you're using flash, that is, you want a flash that can recycle quickly. If you're using natural light, then obviously it's frame rate of the camera. The more frames you can bang out, the more chance you've got one that's in focus. Because typically with macro photography, we're not using autofocus, we're using manual focus. And when it comes to a macro lens, we typically set the magnification that we want of that setup. So if you imagine if your hand held at 1 times magnification, you're moving backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down. The spider's moving around. It's a very split-second chance that your focus is bang on where you want it. So the more shots you can bang out, the better. It's a nightmare in editing, but at least you get that one shot that's in focus.
I mean, in the macro world, I find, focus is difficult at the best of times. I mean, I shoot toys once in a while, and it's difficult to actually just get a Lego figure into focus. There are techniques like focus stacking, for example, but I'm guessing that when you're hand holding, focus stacking is not really an option.
To be honest with you, half of my stuff is handheld focus stack.
How do you do that?
I'll be honest with you, it's the camera.
Right.
I use the Olympus system, and its stabilization is absolutely phenomenal. You know, if I was to get my Canon setup out, I have done handheld, but again, your hit rate is a lot lower. So you might take 500 to 1,000 shots to get one stack that works. With the Olympus, I'm constantly banging out shots because, again, the speed of the camera is fast and the stabilization is very good in that camera.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip, then press here for the full episode in glorious Technicolor. Hey, and don't forget to subscribe.